Hello and welcome to the Talking Crit livecast. With me, as always, is my usual partner in arms or co-conspirator, Bad Mike.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
And with us today, as our special guest, is Levi Combs.
Hello, broadcasting from my closet.
Wow. You really need to get out of the closet, Levi. We've all known.
Yeah,
that. There's no
I was
point
going
in
to
being in
say
the closet
something,
anymore.
but I was like, it'll
I'll
be a
go there.
bad joke that no,
No,
because
I'll go.
you can go there. If I made that
I
joke,
went
somebody
there.
would take it out of context,
Oh,
and they
dear.
would be like,
yeah, you're right.
they'd be like, "Oh, Tenkar
You'd be-
was saying."
You'd be finished. You're right. You'd be finished in the industry. True.
Bob G says, "Hi, gents." Bob, welcome. Thank
Hey,
you for
Bob.
joining the show. So,
Well, we continuing our string of absolutely hit podcasts of the last 3 weeks when we have had a group of Kickstarter people. We had Greg Gillespie. We had oh gosh, I already forgot all the people we had. I don't remember things very good. Anyway,
Courtney
Campbell was last week, and who else did we have?
We
had another.
We had
Casey.
Douglas.
Yeah, we had Doug. Oh, we had Casey a while back
Casey.
too. Well, that was a while back, and we don't care about Casey anyway. He's you need to not hit your star to him anymore, Levi. You've clearly eclipsed his star. I think. So you need to move beyond Case. So anyway, we're continuing our hit series of please back this Kickstarter by going with Levi this week, who we wanted to have on the show anyway because Levi's awesome, and he also has a Kickstarter. And Levi is the author of some really. So let me just tell you a little story. So Levi came to our attention through a guy named Casey Christopherson. You may have heard of him. And he said, "Hey, this guy, Levi, you really need to." He's got this Kickstarter coming out called Jungle Tomb of the Mummy. Oh, no, yeah, Jungle Tomb of the Mummy Bride, right? And he said, "You really need to look at this. It's really good stuff." And I looked at it like, "Well, it's only in 5e. I don't really buy anything 5e. I only buy old school OSR." He said, "No, it's really good. You need to buy it." So I was like, "Okay, I bought it. I got it, and it was really good." And I got some other people to buy it, and then
Thank you.
ever since then, Levi's been putting out some weird and wonderful things. I guess Levi's niche is kind of a Lamentations of the Flame Princess Light. He does kind of, if you haven't read any of his stuff before, he did Horror Out of Hag's Jaw for Frog God. He's done Skull Cano Island, which just came out, which I apologize, Levi, I have not read yet. I haven't read yet. And then what's the one? The Crater. I can't remember.
That was an occurrence at a Howling Crater.
Yes, which is great. If you have not read that one is it's special. Okay, it's really good. But he does not shy away from just the weird and the wonderful and the wacky and probably goes a little farther than you would normally go in a D&D type adventure, but not all the way to the point of James Raggy over the topness. But yeah,
thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. There only needs to be one Raggy. But no, and so I have been following his career, and it's just one hit after another. Everything I've read by Levi I really enjoy, and so he has something called the Phylactery, which is the hot thing of the moment. It's a fanzine of sorts, and fanzines are hot, and so I have Phylactery 1, which I've read. I do not have 2, which I'll probably remedy when I buy 3. Or maybe I've already bought 3. I have to look and see.
I'll bring you a copy of North Texas.
Okay, well there we go. I'm off the hook now. I think I bought one anyway. I already bought one.
Payola. We like the payola.
Yeah, we can be bought.
Gotta be in person.
We can be definitely bought. Yeah. So tell us about Phylactery. What are we looking here with Phylactery, and what do you got going here? I had, like I said, I had the first one. There's a lot of bang for your buck in there. What are we looking forward to Phylactery 3?
So Phylactery 3 obviously is the third installment in the Phylactery series. It's kind of like my flagship zine. It is all OSR, all first edition, and it's really, it kind of harkens back to those days of like the Ardring Grimoire and Dragon Tree Press kind of products. That's what I'm trying to emulate because I love those old products so much. They made a huge mark on me when I very first started playing D&D, and honestly, I with the group that I was playing with, I didn't know the difference between Arduin and D&D. It was all kind of seamless. And the DM we had, who was the father of some brothers that I was friends with, he integrated all that stuff in there. So right from the get-go, I was starting out with kind of the weird and wonderful and wild sort of D&D. Some people now these days call it kind of a gonzo approach, but I kind of shy away from that moniker. I'm not. I really don't think of myself or the kind of stuff that I do as gonzo, but more of what I like to call grindhouse, and that's kind of more of a cinematic sort of genre-driven approach to role playing. That's why so many of the products you get are they're clearly homages to other products.
Well, so for those that don't know, Arduin was a David Hargraves in the late 70s who sadly died at an early age. This is kind of his version of D&D, and back then there was different flavors of D&D. You had East Coast D&D, you had West Coast D&D, you had Midwest D&D. With Gary and them played, I guess you would call that West. That was Midwest D&D. That was kind of the meat and potatoes D&D. East Coast was different, but West Coast, you're right, that was gonzo. That was aliens, and you would play dragons, and you had guys with ray guns, and there was robots. I mean, West Coast was all over the place, and David Hargraves and his Arduin Grimoire they were front and center, the flag bearer for that type of D&D, and he came out with a bunch of different booklets. And so his rules, it wasn't just one big rule book. Now later on there was a box set that came out, but the first they were just these little digests, and they had about seven or eight in all, I think.
I believe 8, yeah.
Yeah, and they're really good. If you ever want to get inspired for like OSR type D&D, original D&D, look up the Arduin Grimoire. That they're not super expensive. I mean, if you want to get a pristine copy, yes, but if you just want to get a beat up copy, go on eBay. But that's the kind of stuff, and I do think, yeah, you definitely owe a debt to that, Levi, with your stuff. It does remind me quite a bit of the Arduin Grimoire type way of looking at things, which is like everything but the kitchen sink, and the kitchen sink too. Sometimes we're going to throw that in there too. We're going to have everything.
Well, the phylactery has more of a when you get an issue of it, you'll get NPCs, you'll get magic items, you'll get an artifact. There'll be at least one mini adventure in there, probably a couple. You'll get a couple, little articles about different things that are OSR fantasy related, and it's all in-game stuff. There's no interviews, there's no long tables or charts. There's no material in there that you're going to find anywhere else. Like, I'm not trying to pad out page count or to republish or just recreate something that you can go to 3 or 4 other zines or books that you already have. So when you get an issue of that, it's 48 pages of. There's a lot of bang for your buck in there, and that's by design. Other than the covers and the forward and the OGL in the back, everything in there can be thrown right into the table.
Yeah, that's good. So this is kind of the stuff that wasn't you were looking at like, oh, this can't be a full blown adventure, but this is definitely something I can add and just make an article about 4 or 5 pages. And that was that. And the phylactery one's kind of like that. There's a lot of little tidbits you can use. I'll go through there. And it's again, a little too gonzo for my campaign, but yeah, it's good stuff.
It's by design. Like, for instance, in the Phylactery 3, there's a mini adventure that is great for say you have your hex map and you don't know what's in that hex. It's perfect for that. Or if you have a game that rolls around and 3 out of the 6 of your players don't show. There's various commitments or last minute deals, but you still want to run a game. So, hey, I can put them on this little side trek. It'll take a couple hours. Boom. It's very clean, very utilitarian. You can throw it right in there, make your tweaks, and you're done. There's a lot of plug and play, straight from page to table kind of material in there.
Well, it sounds extremely useful. And by the way, if half my players didn't show up, their characters are dying that night. If they don't call me, if their characters are, unless there's an ice storm or a tornado, they're dead. So yes, you're much nicer than I am.
Well, you know how it is. The life happens. Where at least I'm at an age now where I've got 2 kids and a wife, and it's life happens. So sometimes people just can't make it. Or an emergency or whatever. And when that happens, boom, you've got something like
plug
that.
And play adventures are always appreciated. Those hex crawl type. I always like the hex crawl type stuff. Like, hey, here's some things that can be in this hex. I love the old Judges Guild products because they had a lot of hex crawl suggestions. But yeah, I always like the plug and play adventures too. Like, hey, this is just few pages long. I used to use those a lot for Call of Cthulhu because you want to introduce somebody to Call of Cthulhu, but you don't want to get involved in a giant campaign to kill Cthulhu. So you're like, okay, well, you're going to go fight some cultists in this house over here, and you kind of throw it in there. And so your adventures are kind of like that. The little ones are kind of that way. Just, hey, it's going to be a little one shot. We're going to go run and do this, and you can flesh it out as necessary. If you want to make it a little longer, or if you want to make it a little shorter. So.
The thing that I really loved about those old Arduin products is that they were so packed full of useful little tidbits and adventure hooks and names that sometimes you'd read a name and you would think, oh man, all of a sudden I've got an idea for a side adventure, or I've got a plot hook here just from reading a couple lines the guy had written in there, And Hargrave was really, really great about seeding his books, even though they were typed on they were typed kind of a funky way, and sometimes the
production quality production quality was rough on those,
but
very rough on those. Yes.
They were just drenched in imagination and just evocative ideas, and it really hooked me right from the beginning. So
Hargrave also. So one thing I noticed about your work too, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to hog the conversation, Eric. You can jump in whenever you want to.
Oh no, it's good.
I'm a fanboy of Levi, so I'm gonna gush on him a little bit here. But no, one thing I like about
Levi has fans. They're asking him questions. They want to.
I know they love him. It's the bald head. It shows virility, and so I've got too much hair here. I don't know. No, but one thing that I think is interesting about Hargraves is he had a very kind of a horror bit. I don't know if you ever read he wrote a couple of Call of Cthulhu adventures.
I have.
They're the most horrific I don't know if you and I ever talked about this before. I think we have.
Rough.
They're horrible. They're like some of the most. One of them I remember had a scene where you find a child who's been kidnapped and his fingers have been cut off, and the cannibal people ate his fingers. And this is I'm like, holy crap! This is in the early '80s.
I was going to say for late '70s, early '80s. That's he would get stuff.
Yeah, he got rough, and he had some really horror. He probably wrote the most difficult Call of Cthulhu adventure ever written, which is the Carnival. Take your 100th level Call of Cthulhu adventurers through that and see if they survive. They're not going to survive. Because but he had kind of a horror, I don't know how to say it, but it was kind of dark, and I think your adventures have that kind of that dark. I remember I just read Horror Out of Hag's Jaw because I hadn't read it in a long time. I just thought I'd read something of yours that I hadn't read in a while. There's a bit of a darkness in some of the stuff you write. Definitely, there's not a bunch of cheer adventures with happy, funny elves and giggling halflings and occurrence. Why don't you tell us about Crater? That is an interesting adventure. I look at it as it's like The Hills Have Eyes mixed with D&D. It's a really interesting adventure. If you ever
you mentioned Horror Out of Hag's Jaw, and I wanted to write a horror adventure, so that's where that comes from. And I have a long-standing the love of Lovecraft's work, so it's very heavily influenced by the themes that Lovecraft uses, the dread, the decrepit town, the mysterious townsfolk, that sort of thing. And of course there's it's got some Lovecraftian name drops in there as well. But in Occurrence at Howling Crater, a great cover, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
In Occurrence at Howling Crater it's really I love Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. Love that adventure. To me, it's one of those Gygax is a titan whose shoulders everyone stands on. You can love, hate him, have whatever kind of relationship you want to have with him, but regardless, you're standing on that man's shoulders. He wrote some of the greatest adventures that have ever been written. And Barrier Peaks being one of those. I'm such a huge fan of that. I wanted to do an homage to Barrier Peaks. But what I did is I kind of did sort of Plan 9 from Outer Space meets The Hills Have Eyes, kind of those old grindhouse genre exploitation movies like was it Spider Baby? Yeah. And then there was Hills Have Eyes, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Gator Bait, all those old really crappy 70s films. Which, by the way, I love them all. But there's a whole subgenre.
But if you're in front of the TV on a Yeah, if you're on the TV on a Saturday and you're treated a cable station and they're on a budget, they're going to throw one of those up there. You're like,
I
oh,
love
okay,
them,
I've
man.
seen that. I haven't seen this, but yeah, this is really weird. This is a really bad
Well,
movie.
there's
It's really
a
weird. So
whole
yes,
subgenre of grindhouse films called cannibal exploitation and Hicksploitation. And the Hicksploitation is the where it's like local yokels or like hillbillies doing crazy things to outsiders.
yeah. There's always this
You get,
couple that are driving through town that they get
yeah.
lost and then their car breaks down and then really bad things happen after that. Yeah,
And that's kind of where the antagonists in the first half of Howling Crater come from. They're crater mutants. They're these irradiated, hillbillies basically that have these fantastic powers. Some of them have mental powers and they have these giant heads and big brains. The other ones are these brutes, whatnot. But I feel like I've infused it with enough flavor as to where it's not completely tasteless, but there's some pretty heavy moments in that first half of that adventure. Some stuff
not for kids. It's not for kids.
No,
I would say
so
that.
out of all the modules that I've done, that's the one that I wouldn't say to just spring on your players. That's one that you should sit down with them and say, hey, listen, I've got this module, but there's some stuff in here. There's some, but then you listen, you get to the last half of it, and it's all like atomic vintage 50s and 60s sci-fi. There's no more craziness, It takes a dramatic shift in the middle of the module to something completely different. And it's packed full of Easter eggs and all the things that I love about vintage sci-fi.
Well, I bought Skullcano Island just because there's a dinosaur fighting like King Kong on the cover. I'm like, okay, I'm in. I mean, big monsters are beating each other up. I'm always in, and so that must be another callback to the radioactive monster genre. Like I flipped to the book. I have not read it yet, but it looks great and it looks like it's another genre homage there.
I pulled a kind of a 1-2 on that. It's obviously has its roots in like kaiju cinema, like Godzilla, King Kong, Mothra, King Ghidorah, all that kind of stuff. But just like in The Walking Dead, how the zombies aren't really the threat; they're just kind of the background. That's just what's happening, is that there's zombies and the people are actually the real threat in The Walking Dead. That's the way it is with Skullcano Island. The kaiju, the giant monsters, that's not really the big problem that you have. It's this other thing that's happening, and you have to navigate this savage, wild land, And again, that comes from my love of stuff like Isle of Dread, Isle of the Ape, and then actually our friend Casey, he did a really good adventure called the Isle of what is it called? Isle of Banjo Tombo. He did that for the frogs back in the day. So that's it's a great adventure. And I remember playing it at a con with him and reading it and just loving it. But that's where the roots of that book are.
So speaking of that guy you named, Casey, so he takes credit for discovering you. So I think you've told me this story before, but tell me how you and Casey hooked up and how you came to the attention of everybody.
So I want to say 12, 13 years ago, I was at, what was the name of that con? I was in Tulsa, Conestoga. It was a convention called Conestoga in Tulsa. They don't have it anymore, but and it's a very small con, a very small room for gaming. And I decided that I was going to run a 24-hour Rappanathic game. Now, I had bought those modules from Barnes and Noble, just pulled them off and loved them. Loved those adventures. In fact, I credit those adventures for actually keeping me in the hobby, because I kind of had like 1 foot out of the hobby, and was just doing other things. And I saw Orcus, on the cover of this module, and I was like, "Oh, this is what I've been looking for all this time." And I snapped it up, and that was the third one, I think. And then I quickly went back and got the other 2, and man, I started running it for all my players. And then decided that this other guy and I were going to do a 24-hour game around the clock, wrapping at the game. Anybody can jump in, whatever. So, Kate, I've never met Casey before. He comes along and he goes, "Oh, hey." He takes a picture, he says, "Hey, I know the guy that wrote these books, do you mind if I like sit in on your game?" So, we played some I had a good time. And then I got up to leave to use the restroom and called a break. And then somebody caught me out in the hallway, and I was just I was gone for like 15 minutes. I come back, Casey's running the game. And he's killed 2 characters.
Of course he has. Yes.
It was the encounter with the yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it's the ghost and the iron golems. Where the ghost basically he possesses you and then lets the iron golems just breathe on you. It's so deadly. And I was kind of like, hey man, like this is a clear
back off,
clear
dude.
overstep of like this is kind of messed up. So he goes, hold on, and he pulls out from the table. He pulls out Rappahannock 3, the 3rd installment. He says, I'm in the book. Like I helped write some of these encounters. Like I was a contributing writer. I was like, oh, okay. Well, you know, out of all the times that this would be allowable, I suppose this is allowable. And then we just got to be friends from then on. And then years later, I said, hey, listen, I know you're. I've been buying these products from the Frogs, and I know that Necromancer Games is coming back. He says, I'm just trying to get my foot in the business. Can you show somebody this? And he said, of course. And it didn't work out, which is fine. I'm not the kind of person that goes, oh, they didn't take my stuff. Who am I? Who? I mean, I'm nobody. Like nobody knows my name. I'm just one more guy in the pile. So what Casey did is he said, listen, what you need to do is you just need to do it yourself. And he pushed me and just basically shoved me off the cliff until I did take that plunge into doing it for myself. And really through him, him giving me lots of advice and pointing me in the wrong direction, helped me edit. And then, just getting advice from other people that he knew, like Zach gave me some advice and Matt gave me some advice, and just a number of people. They didn't know who I was, but they knew that I knew Casey. So that was good enough for them.
So Zach's advice is how to take pictures of food, which didn't really come in handy, but you're like, okay, whatever.
But they were all very generous with their time. Again, with somebody that, again, they didn't know me from Adam, but they were extremely generous with their time. So that's how I got my feet wet. Was that way.
Interesting.
Awesome.
And you know what? And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people get into the hobby, publishing wise, by publishing their own initially, and then if you do good work, you get noticed. If you and when you do good work, it's because you start getting not just the customers, but they start talking amongst each other. You got people right now that want to know how they can contribute to I guess Phylactery 4, because 3 is apparently already written, I would say.
Oh yeah, it's written, and there actually number 4 will be the first one that has some other writers on it, and that's good. I think that's a good thing. I know John Larson is doing an article, a couple pages,
okay,
and a few other folks, but yeah, I mean, just reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Just reach out and say, hey, I saw you on the Tenkar's Tavern. How do I contribute? And we'll figure it out.
See, James, now you have your answer.
By the way, so Greg Gillespie just popped in. I wanted to say that
hey, Greg.
Greg's Kickstarter is doing awesome. He's over 62,000 Canadian dollars, 49,000 American, I think. I mean, it's by far his. I mean, and I'm sorry, Greg. I'm going to give Eric and I all the credit for this.
Oh God, of course, you have to.
Yeah, there's no other explanation except that we probably pushed, gave you at least an extra $20,000-$30,000 to that Kickstarter. So hopefully we do the same with Levi here today. So, but yeah, that was definitely our contribution. So we appreciate you rewarding.
Highfell's one of my faves. I love.
It's
Highfell.
Great. Yeah, we're running that right now. It's awesome.
The Drifting Dungeon. It's such a cool name. Highfell, the Drifting Dungeon, Barrow Maze. I mean, those are all great names, great concepts.
Yeah, he's a little talented, maybe. I'm
a sucker for a mega dungeon too, man.
That's
why I love Rappahannock so much.
Them. Oh, I love a mega dungeon. But yeah, he's at 49. Looks like 49,000 American, 62,000 Canadian. So that's got to be his number one Kickstarter ever. So congratulations on that, Greg. And he has a few more days. You want to get on that? And you have how many more days do you have in Phylactery?
I want to say 12.
12.
I had it on. Oh, so you got about a week there. And apparently I have backed it. Oh, I did back it. So yeah,
Levi's at
definitely
7,500, but nearly 400 backers. That's
a lot of backers. That's good. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, the buy-in isn't bad, folks. Your buy-in is basically $15. I think with shipping it's 20. I mean, it really should be. I hate to say the words no-brainer, but yes, it's a no-brainer. It's a lot of content, and it's not going to break your wallet.
And there's no that's by design. Like I said, I try to keep them fairly cheap, but then there's a lot of stuff in there. Like I said, again, there's no wasted pages. It's not one of those things you're going to get, where you get a zine or a book and you open it up and there's a blank cover page, and you get to the back and there's like three pages of blank material, or just says notes, and you're like, man, this is really patchy. The print isn't super big or anything. Like it's a legitimate fanzine. And it's laid out really, really nice by my partner, Tracy Steele. She's done every book since Howling Crater on, and she's fantastic, man. She really does.
Wow.
And that cover right there, if you look at that cover, that's an homage to an old X-Men cover.
X-Men 142 or something. 140. Yeah,
142.
That was the Days of Future Past. That's one of the classic X-Men.
Yeah,
so I was wondering. I was looking at the names too. I saw GDZ on there. Is there any other inside jokes on there that we should know about?
Oh yeah. So if GDZ there, that's Zach, but he's in a Fremen still suit.
Oh, how funny! Yeah.
And
he was just apprehended too. He's not dead yet, so
just apprehended.
Yeah.
Of course, we had to kill Skeet. He's
of course.
Dead. But if you notice where that question mark is. That's the special. The final backing tier, where if you buy in on that tier, we will literally put your face, drawn by Ed Bickford, who's on your copy of that, and we'll do like 3 copies, but so you'll have your own issue with your face on it and your name, and then we'll do that for as many.
It's only $50. I'm so tempted. Oh dear!
Like for as many people who has wanted. Like if we get 50 people, we're making 50 covers. You know what I mean?
Oh dear. Okay.
Like Ed is already contracted to do it.
12 backers. You already have 12 backers. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That is a great idea. Here, give me some money and I'll stick your face on the cover. That's great.
And, if you look at those names too, it's a lot of people who really helped me out there in the very, very beginning. Casey is up there in the corner as Bowby. You got Jim Wampler on there, but his name is backwards. It's Repmlaw or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Classic.
I see. Yeah.
You've got Adrian Landeros, he's done every project I've done since Mummy Bride. He's down there in the lower right hand corner. I have a couple other people, but we're all
great.
We're all on there.
That's a hell of an Easter egg. I like that.
Yeah, there's so anybody who wants to can get their face on the cover, as long as it doesn't say something crazy. We'll put it on.
How much do I have to pay how much do I have to pay to get everybody else's name taken off and just my name, just my face?
There you go. He wants to be on the right of the
to be on everybody's cover. Yeah,
I just want to be on there 12 times.
Yeah, exactly. I'm that badass. You gotta, yeah.
Yeah, Greg says, Greg agrees with you, Mike. He says, yes, you did.
Wow, somebody recognizes our greatness. My estimation of Greg went up a little bit. Hey, well, there we go.
Ryan, everything Planet X makes has been awesome.
Hey, thanks, Ryan.
Yes. Yeah, and by the way, Jungle Tomb and the Mummy Bride's really good too. It's I was a little off put by the fact it was only in 5e. But I bought it anyway. And the thing is, 5e, you can translate 5e into anything. It's not that difficult to do. So I was a little worried about that. But it was great. It worked out just fine.
Beginning of next year, I'm going to do some stuff for Swords of Wizardry because you guys have opened up that license, and it's a there's I can actually get in there and and use the rule set now. So
you could always use the rule set, but the Lost Lands are open now, and that's huge.
Yeah.
because you can now.
Plus that you got that stock artwork and you know all the great locations in Lost Lands. So like, how can you not? You know.
So yeah, you got the Greg Gillespie support going on here, Levi.
Well, thanks, Greg. Appreciate it, man.
He's just sucking up now.
Yeah,
I don't think Greg sucks up to anybody.
No, I don't think so either.
He probably doesn't have to. You're right. I forgot about that.
Ryan wants to know: Jungle Tomb is coming out in DCC, right?
Yeah, I wanted to do. I have a bucket list of things I wanted to do in different systems, and I wanted to do a DCC module. I think it's a fun system, and I wanted to do one. So I would look through what I already had in the existing catalog, and it felt like Jungle Tomb and the Mummy Bride was the easiest one to convert over to that system. And if it works out, maybe more in the future. But again, I'll do that one, and then early next year, Swords of Wizardry, because it's also on that bucket list of things I wanted to do.
Now, my question actually, because you're bringing up DCC, I find that converting from DCC to Swords of Wizardry or whatever OSR system is easy, but converting to DCC is a bit more fiddly.
You're right. I'm knee deep in that right now, actually, in those conversions. And I had to enlist help. So Jeff Seifert, I had to enlist his help. He's been awesome. He knows the system really, really well, and he's been helping me convert, because there is a whole lot of other rules and just different things going on in that game. And I think maybe that is what the appeal of that is to so many people, is that it, when you play DCC, it does feel like, at least for me, like it's 1983 again. And I'm just picking up the dice and just slinging them for the first time, and I don't know what's around the corner. It does have that element. I don't know how long that element will last, if that will be able to endure over time. But at least for right now, with the way the rules play out, especially the spell burn and all the patron tanks, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's just that what if factor. And they've done a really good job of not doing fantasy, but doing weird fantasy. They have much more of a Robert E. Howard, Fritz Leiber, Michael Moorcock kind of feel to their stuff, as far as it being just kind of outlandish and weird in spots. They do a good job with that, I think.
Well, I remember with the DCC, when Goodman put out the DCC beta, I was not impressed with the beta. I actually was very turned off by it. And yet, when the book came out, I ordered the book, got the book, and my reaction was pretty much, holy shit. This, like you said, it made me feel like it was back in 1981 for me, and I was just grabbing I got my first copies of the D&D books, the core books, and I'm reading the rules, and it felt magical, and that was the magic I felt. And for somebody in their 40s at the time to feel the magic they felt when they were 13 is huge.
Yeah.
So Goodman hit that right on the mark. I was very impressed, and I ran it a bit. My group loved the adventures, just didn't really like the system because it was too swingy for my players. My group, the same person, Joe the lawyer, would always play the caster, and Joe likes to have an idea as to what his spells are going to do. And in DCC, part of the magic is that the magic is magical, and you don't really know what the hell it's going to do. And so even though in the end he did more than he expected in general, it was stressing him out. I think that he wasn't able to plan exactly what listen. You're going to cast a fireball. All right. Well, average damage will probably be 18 to 20. If they save, it'll still take out this, and this. Whereas DCC, you're like, well, I could wind up just throwing a ball the size of somebody's fist, or I could take out, half this county. I don't know. We shall see. As a DM, I enjoyed it because, well, shit like that is just fun as a DM. But again, must have run at least a half dozen of those the classic DCC RPG era adventures for Swords and Wizardry. I read the adventure through, usually about twice, and then I would just convert as I ran it because, again, downsizing from DCC or 5e to Swords and Wizardry or Labyrinth Lord or Osric is easy, but
it translates really well.
Yeah, but moving up is a lot harder because these other systems have more figure
dice too. If you don't have the special dice, then you got to figure out something else. But it's a great way to move dice.
Well, that it is, and I have glow in the dark DCC RPG dice. So
did you get the ones from Wampler? The glow burn?
No, actually, somebody did it before Wampler. So I got the ones from a couple of years ago, and then I got 2 sets. But then my niece, she must have been like 6 or 7 at the time. This is after she was almost 6 when Swords and Wizardry Light came out, and she was like, "You can teach me to play D&D. You can teach me to read 4 pages. You can teach me." And then the next year, she had Swords and Wizardry Continue Light in her hand, and it's saying, "Auntie, this cover sells. This sells." She's happy with the artwork. She's ecstatic. She saw dice that were glowing, and she's like, "I need them."
Have you stuck to have you stuck to your guns as far as over the years on the kind of way that you like to play or the systems that you like to play? Like, did you start out as a first ed or BX guy and just kind of really have stayed a BX or first ed guy, or do you think that the way that you like to play has been more mercurial, where you've gone up and down, and I'd like to play second edition. Oh, but hey, man, I really like to play this, and I like to play rules heavy. But then years later, you're wanting to play basic stuff again. What's it been like for you guys?
Mike, you want to go first? Or should
I know myself. Yeah, I'll talk about it. So we played first edition, came out, and then when we switched to second edition, we were actually one of the groups who were real happy. Like, oh, this has a lot of the house rules that we have anyway. And I'll be honest with you, for the past 30 or so years, we pretty much try to work second edition into every game session. Now, I like BX a lot. I just think it's a very, very simple and elegant system, and I do it for all my con games. I use BX because it's just the red rule book, and it's just, especially if you do low level stuff, it's just really simple. And the worst part about it is it's not arranged very well. You have to flip through the book to find different things. Right. But yeah, I'm not big. I know some people that just they can have a game of Pathfinder one day, then they go do a 5e game in the afternoon, and they'll go run a game of I don't know, 3E. And I can't do that. I'm comfortable, and so the last group we had, we were going to do one of Greg Gillespie's Mega Dungeons. And I said, which one do you want to do? And I described all 3 of them. They said, we want to do High Fail. Okay, so we're going to do High Fail. Which rule system will we use? They're like, I don't know. Just pick something. Like, okay, so the first couple sessions, we didn't even really use a rule system. We just rolled up characters and they ran. And then after about 2 sessions, they go, you know what? We have all the 2E rule books. Let's just do 2E. Because and I was like, yeah, I'm just so familiar with that because I ran it so many years. And even after 3E came out, we still played 2E for a long time. And I like 1E a lot, but I am absolutely not a 1E purist at all by any means. I think there's a lot of flaws in the game that I don't like, that I think 2E actually fixed. And so, yeah, I'm pretty much just stuck in the mud. I don't know what I'm going to do when I finally run out of people to play 2E, because I do like Swords Wizardry Light a lot. I enjoy that a lot. I don't think that's a very good campaign system. I don't know how you'd run a long-term campaign with that, but the older I get, I want to get simpler with stuff. And so, BX is a great system. I'm not as big a beast in my eye. I tell you what I like. I just read the Crypts and Things rule system. I like Swords Wizardry a lot. I like that quite a bit. My one problem with Swords Wizardry is I think it has a lot of the same issues that I have with 1E, is that there's a lot of stuff that doesn't really make sense, but it's just there because it's just there. I mean, that's, and I'm not Yeah, I'm not big on rules. Just like, this is just the rule because it's just the rule. I really don't like that. I know some people are like, well, dwarves can't be ninth level just because they can't be ninth level, just because that's what Gary said. I'm never big on that. Like, no,
Yeah, me either.
I'll do what I want to do. And I think Swords Wizardry has a lot of that in there. Where, why is this spell here? Why is resist? Why can't clerics know spells at first level? I mean, just things like that. Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, I'm pretty much stuck in the mud. I will try other things, but when it comes to DMing, I'm probably always going to do one of those systems, either BX, 2E, or I would love to do a Holmes. I'd do a Holmes game because I think Holmes is kind of a fun system. What about you, Eric? What are you kind of looking at?
Well, I came in with first edition, and we played first edition until second edition came out, and then we played second edition using first edition modules or whatever. But also at the time, I would run RuneQuest second edition. I would run Warhammer. I would run the Pacesetter games. Occasionally Call of Cthulhu one shots. I would play and run anything. And we gained right up until 2E when the Skills and Powers books came out, and I think our right before we closed things off, that Book of Swords or some shit was released.
Right.
And then I went into the police academy, and I just we stopped gaming. You can't Wednesday, Thursday for your weekend, and working 5:30 in the evening to 2:00 in the morning does not lead to gaming.
Right, it's not conducive for a game life.
And there were no VTTs really at the time. So I stepped away for about 10 years before VTTs reintroduced me, and I played Castles and Crusades, and I loved it. And I played Dark Heresy. I was like, oh, this is awesome on Fantasy Grounds. So the dice rolls were automated, and that was cool. But then when I started coming back to gaming, and I started really getting my feet settled, and when I first started gaming at 13, again, AD&D. Basic is for kids. I mean, if I'm 13 and I'm playing AD&D, basic is the slow track. So that's the 8-year-olds that want to play D&D. They're playing basic, not come on. Don't even get, please. So I came back to it, and I realized, although I could sit down and we used to do this, we started playing back in the early days with after my group just started forming online, we actually started playing the D&D Next playtest. That was horror. But we have points where we would do the D&D trivia cards. Remember the D&D second edition trivia cards? And I knew still, 10, 15 years later, all this obscure bullshit that nobody in their right mind should care about. And I'm quoting and at the same time, I'm saying to myself, but do I really want to run a system that's that heavy? And 2E is not heavy compared to Pathfinder. Yeah. It's not heavy compared to even 5E. But for what I wanted to get out of it, because when I came back to it, I went, oh wow, those splat books that I found annoying as a DM. When my players were like, I'm going to be a blade singer. It's like, oh, I just broke the campaign, didn't I?
No.
Fuck. I realized I want something simple. So found Labyrinth Lord as a PDF online. It's like, oh, this is actually pretty good. Found out Castles of Crusades. Buy.com had copies for $9.75. I ordered 8 copies to pass out to my old face-to-face gaming group when we got together once a year. It's like, come on, this is like what we used to play. But once I really started getting back into it, I was like, Swords and Wizardry is pretty much my zone. Because especially if I'm going to run stuff, I want to run stuff that I don't have to refer to the book. Maybe for the spell details, but just to run combat. If I don't have to refer to the book, it plays, it runs, it's awesome. Once you have to break out that book, and I'm 2E, you still have to break out the book to figure out a lot of stuff. And God knows anything beyond that, 5E and Pathfinder. I want something where, listen, when I put together Swords and Wizardry Light, it was like, wow, I can run convention games and never open this shit up.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is nirvana for me. So
The sweet spot.
It's the sweet spot. As a player, I'm more than happy to up my complications because I only need the complications for myself. But as a DM, I want to lower the complications because I need to know everybody's complications, the bells and whistles for all my PCs and all my NPCs and all the creatures. I have to know enough to be fluent so that the game runs at a great pace. But as a player, I can be like, oh, sure, I want to be a Dragonborn Paladin, Ranger, Cleric, Asswipe. So I only need to know my end of the game.
That's a hell of a combo.
Well, what can I
game
say?
breaker? Yeah, game breaker.
The Asswipe is the part that really breaks it to a new level. I understand it.
John Miller says there's a thread in the 1E Facebook page asking anyone who plays by the book, rules as written 1E. Has anyone in the history game ever played that? I have a funny story about that because I used to run all these guys, especially when 3E was out and all, kind of old school gaming disappeared. You still see these groups that were playing old school D&D. And I'd say, like, they'd go, yeah, we play exactly as it's written in the 1E rule books, except for this. But other than that, man, we play it exactly the same. I'm like, okay, yeah. And so that's what I find most groups that say that. They say, yeah, I play just exactly as written in the rules, and then they still pick and choose which rules they're going to follow because Frank Menzer is the only person I've ever met in my life that uses the armor versus weapons chart, which he does use. Right. He will use that, which is a beatdown, an absolute effing beatdown, and he will use it. He will make you use it just so you can kind of get how old school D&D was, but it's not any fun. So yeah, no, nobody. The whole point about rules as written is it was never meant to be played rules as written because, as Tim Kask will tell you if you ask him, or even if you don't ask him, Gary didn't play the rules as written. He never played the rules as written. He didn't, not one bit, and so he never played AD&D. Gary wasn't happy with AD&D at all anyway. So
AD&D was supposed to be the rules for convention play, so everybody is playing with the same set of rules.
Right,
but I went to Gen Con 25, I guess back in 92, and I was in an AD&D 2E tournament. And from my first round to my second round, two different DMs, initiative and surprise were done completely differently. And I was like...
That's always good, yeah.
I was like, but I thought that at a convention, organized play tournament, we'd all be on the same page, but we weren't. But again, when I first started DMing AD&D 1A, I believed in running as written. And people today are like, oh, you know how long it takes to run combat in Pathfinder? How many? Listen, you run 1E where you were worrying about weapon speed, segments, spell interruption, what goes first, spell, missile, melee combat. Yep. Oh, look at that. All right, well, your weapon speed, well, it only comes into play if we tie initiative.
Yeah.
And in which case...
I've got a dagger, and you got a long sword, so my dagger is going to stab you first, even though, if you think about it, a long sword should hit you first because the reach is longer, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to believe that. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, if you have a two-handed sword, my dagger gets to strike like 3 times. I think I never understood it. So that was the first thing gone. And then spell interruption with the segments, I was like, I am not counting down constantly. This is fucking annoying. But it's the wargaming roots to the game.
Sure.
Yeah. I was not a war. I was not a war game. I tried. I remember getting a couple of the war games from I guess Game Designer Workshop had a few out. And they were like the double blind system where you both had maps where you got to pull out the hexes to see what you saw. It was interesting, but people in my group were like, I don't want to fucking play this shit. We just want to role play. We don't want to play war games. Which is why AD&D 1E as written didn't last with us because nobody wanted to play with that wargaming stuff. It wasn't us. We didn't come in from that history. I'm sure if we came in with that history, it would have been different.
I don't think I've ever played with a group ever for any length of time that didn't have where the game may have started out one way, but it very quickly it was just full of house rules, and that never ever bothered me. House rules never bothered me. I'm more of a rule of cool kind of guy. I love that the fact that we have rules and it's a framework for how the game should be played. But at the end of the day, we're all supposed to be having a good time. Now, good time doesn't always it doesn't always equate out to everybody lives and gets a bunch of treasure. Sometimes it's everybody dies, or there's some people lose some characters, or whatever. But I do like it when you have those stories that come from your from a great game. Like I remember the last game I was able to play with my oldest ended. It was the White Plume Mountain, and it ends with them in the underground chamber with a giant crab and the boiling bubble and all this stuff, and they end up riding out of the volcano in a giant spout of steam inside that cube of force and tumbling down the mountainside. It's craziness, but he'll never forget that, because he'll never forget fighting that giant crab in the depths of the dungeon and getting shot out the top of the volcano. And he'll never forget that kind of stuff, man. And that's those memories that you carry from those classic modules and those games. That all that stuff just ties into the rule of cool with me, and they make for some of my favorite gaming memories.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I remember going to finding gaming sessions in the late 80s, early 90s. You would go to somebody's session and they would have a page typed out of what their house rules were. So here's what it is. I'm going to let you know right off the bat, because you had some people try to pull some very devious shit sometimes even on those pickup games. And so it'd be like, here's my house rules, and you need to check off, and then some people would have you sign it so you know what's going on. So when your charm person doesn't work this way, you're going to know what it is. But I have a controversial thing to say here. I'm going to say that
say it. Drop the bomb, man.
Until you house rule a system, you really don't know what you're talking about and not really playing D&D. Until you house rule your own system, because the people that brag that I play just as wit and this and that, you're really not playing the game the way Gary wanted you to play it. House rule. It wasn't until I threw off the yoke and chains of do it exactly how it is, and Gary wrote that article in Dragon Magazine that many years ago that you have to play like this or you're not playing D&D. He was lying. Gary was wrong, because Gary was wrong sometimes, because you only know that you're playing a real D&D when you have house ruled it. And you have got your own set of house rules. So I'm sorry. Those people that say does it rules as written, it just doesn't happen that way, and you're not really playing the game the way you're supposed to be playing it. It's supposed to be a fungible system that you can change. And like you said, Levi, you need to be having fun. What's more fun, this or that? Is this more fun or is that more fun? And you need to be playing the fun way, not the we're going to follow the rules exactly as written and do it this way. Even if, damn it, we're going to bust all the fun out of this game. We're going to play it exactly.
Hey, listen, I'm all for consequences and actions as far as in game. I'm all for that. Always have been. But I think it was Jolly Blackburn said that. He said, okay, as far as edition wars go, he says, well, are you having fun? Yes, then you're playing the game right.
Right.
And I couldn't agree more.
The edition war people always, it was a little more prevalent. Because I remember the big edition war stuff really. So for those of us who are ancient, so the big thing came when D&D first came out. You had the war gamers versus the RPGers, and that was just generic because war gamers saw their audience disappearing. Because they were used to set up these big tables and these games with all these miniature armies, this and that. Well, these guys roll in and they've got one page of books and they got some dice. And everybody's like, where are all the rules? Oh, they're all in here. There's no rules in here. This is just all kinds of bullshit. And so you had this big war between RPGers and that. But the first real edition wars you had was 1E versus 2E. Because you had a lot of people when 2E came out and said, I'm never playing that game. I'm playing 1E the way God intended us to play D&D. And then by the time 3E hit, then you had everybody that 1E and 2E decided they like each other now. And now they're like, I'm not playing that 3E game because it was a different game. And I can understand that. I've never played 3E. I don't enjoy 3E at all. It's a different game. It's not the same game as 1E, 2E. But once again, well, why were there any... I had a game store owner that we came in this is like the early aughts, and when 3E was really popular, and my group, we still played 2E. He wouldn't let us play during prime hours because we were not playing games sold at the store. And and he was selling 3E. He goes, I'm selling 3E. If you're not playing 3E, I don't want you in my store. I mean, it was like, what? And so this went on for years and years and years. And so anything that's happening now, it's the same story, different verses the last 40 years. Whoever does something in the past is going to think their way's better. I remember when 4E came out, all the 3 people were so pissed off because they dropped the ball and they all had to go start playing Pathfinder. And then, and then when 5E came out, all the 5E, 3E and 4E and Pathfinder people were pissed off because it wasn't anything like 3E and Pathfinder and 4E. It was actually more like 1E and 2E, which is funny. So yeah, it's a bunch of smoke being blown for no reason whatsoever. Just like you said, play the game you like. And as long as you're not, doing like that store owner and saying, no, you can't come in my store if you're playing this edition. Like what? And so, and then the thing is, we eventually played this store. We had to play during the daytime though, because all the kids were in school then. And so if we played during the daytime, we're fine. But we had to have our stuff gone by the time they got out of school, because I guess they might see us playing 2E and flip out or something. But yeah,
because you wouldn't be driving sales to the current edition that they're selling. And that's what
it boiled down to. It was very mercenary. Yeah, it was. But see, the whole thing is that there's a big argument going on now about 5E because we talk about this all the time too, Eric, about the constant missteps of Wizards of the Coast, about how they just can't seem to do anything right. But they're trying to sell their version of the game. They don't really care about prior versions of the game, and they shouldn't probably. But the thing about it's a Starbucks effect, right? I mean, rising tide carries all boats. So the more popular 5E is, the more people we have in the OSR, and the more people that are interested in playing. Yeah. And I've told this story many times, but North Texas, we've had people come to North Texas and they'll play a 5E game one day and a 1E game another day because they just want to try different styles while they're there. And there's not a lot of, maybe they've never played a 1E game before, or a 2E game. They just want to try a different style. And so they'll come to North Texas, perfectly happy to play 5E, but they'll work in a 1E session, and vice versa. We've had people that have gone there and they have all old school games. They're like, I want to try 5E. I want to see if it's any good, and they'll give 5E a session, a try. So if you're having fun doing it, why spend all your energy bitching about what edition somebody else is playing?
Oh, I don't think that the way that I do things is superior at all. It's just the way that I like to do it.
And that's the thing. It's the way you like to do it, and it's the way that you feel comfortable with. That's the important thing. I mean, I'm
open-minded. Listen, if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, we're going to play DCC tonight. Do you want to play?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I get a chance to play with my friends. Listen, we're kind of burnt out on D&D. Do you think maybe we could play Castle Falkenstein? Sure, as long as it's not Moral Project. I'm good to go.
Whoa, come on. Don't be bagging on Moral Project, dude.
I inherited that game. I had a friend, and God rest him, we lost him on 9/11 at the Towers, but Paul, when he was still gaming, he comes up to me one day, he goes, "Listen, I'm going to give you something." I go, "What?" He goes, "You give me a box set of the Moral Project." I go,
"I'm sorry, I had the Moral Project, but I brought it home. But I was looking at, I do have this sitting here." I was reading through it. So yeah, I was going through my all my futuristic post-apocalyptic games, and I was reading some Moral System stuff. But I also pulled Aftermath too, which like Moral Project you can't play. You can't play as it's really it's unplayable.
He gives it to me and he goes, "Yeah," because at the time I was running all. I was the only D&D DM in the group because nobody else could touch D&D. They didn't want anybody else running it, only me. But I would run anything else too. So I really want to play this, and the rules are shit. So if you can make sense out of the shit, it'll be great. And then somebody else hands me Bushido the next week, and it's like, I really want to play this.
That's a 1-2 punch right there.
Yeah, FGU could not write rules. The problem with FGU rules is that they have some really cool. I mean, they got some cool ideas and some cool. I mean, Bushido's cool. Pirates and Plunder's cool. He's really cool. But the rules were written as if it's a war game from 1976, and it just refer to section A, and you go down to B, 3, 7, 4, like those old Avalon Hill games, and those FGU games would just kill you like that because you'd have to look all over the place. The rules were not set up a very, very.
Oh, it's like reading stereo instructions from Bangladesh. It's you can't understand a thing unless you are just intimate with that system. I really like the backstory on Moral Project, but good Lord, man, what a mess. It was the same with Rifts. I like the backstory and the whole idea of Rifts, but again, for me and my group, it was just a huge, massive mess. And Arduin, even my beloved Arduin, which I love so much, it's kind of a mess. As far as if you want to run it, you have to have somebody who's really talented, like an Andy Markham or somebody like that, who's really, really dialed in and can do those things. I'm not that guy, man. My eyes start to glaze over on the 18th paragraph of rules. So,
well, everything's changed now, and how the whole how you write a game has changed. I mean, they have classes now on how to write a role playing game, and and there's certain things you avoid, there's certain things you do, and you got to make sure. I mean, that's why dice pools are so popular, because you don't want everything to be luck. I mean, it shouldn't all be luck. It should be, some of it's luck, but you should be able to affect luck if you do this and that. Some of those early games were just ridiculous because it was like, look, there's no rhyme or reason why you do this rule. There's not a rhyme or reason. It's just there because the game designer thought it was cool. He never play tested it. He doesn't know why that rule's there. And unfortunately, I mean, some early D&D stuff suffers from that too, where there's just this rule that you're just, 10, 15 years later, you're looking at it going, why did we ever play with this like this? Because it makes no sense. And one of my favorites is the first edition spell Charm Person. I had groups that banned that spell. They wouldn't use it. I'm like, why won't you use it? Because this and that. And it turns out that everybody had their own interpretation of Charm Person. But if you read Charm Person, it's so vague that it can either the way you read it, it can either allow you to do anything or it can allow you to do nothing. Because if you really want to be a hard ass DM, you could say the minute you ask the Charm Person to go get you a bowl of cereal, that broke the charm because he didn't want to get you a bowl of cereal. But then you had some people like going, oh no, he's your auto, he's your slave. He does whatever you want him to do. And so you had a whole army of charm people that killed the king and destroyed the town. So I mean, it's just one of those things where the interpretation of a certain rule would just go anyway, but that's the way rules were written back in the day, right? I mean, they were vague. They were left open. They didn't want to, and that's one of the reasons actually I like 2E compared to 1E, because they did tighten up a lot of those rules, and they'd say, well, look, Charm Person does this. It doesn't do this anymore. It doesn't do this. It does do this. And I do appreciate the fact of Steve Winter and Zeb Cook looked at it and saw, okay, yeah, we can't leave all this really open-ended interpretation stuff. But that's how a lot of the games were written back then. I mean, look at some of those, like I said, the FGU games. I mean, one of my favorite superhero games ever was Villains and Vigilantes, which I love that game. That's probably the only FGU game I ever managed to play, because I actually managed to figure out the damn rules. And then I ran to Jeff D years later. He's like, yeah, we had no clue what we were doing with those rules. I was like, oh, we managed to figure them out. I don't know if but there was stuff in there too that, just it made no sense, except that it's just a rule because this is a superhero game and you got to be able to do this, this, and this. Otherwise it doesn't make any sense. And so you're like, okay, well, whatever. And nowadays rule systems are so much more elegant and they're so much better planned. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say they're better in terms of, is it better overall, but they're definitely better in terms of how they deal with certain situations, how they flow. I mean, because they've had a lot of, they've learned over the past 40 years what works and what doesn't work. And so, when looking back on 40 years or 50 years of rule systems, you can say, okay, I'm going to write my sister series rules. I'm going to avoid these problems here. And then I'm going to include these things I think are really cool. And like, for instance, one of my favorite rule sets I just came upon that's been out for a long time is Crypts and Things. And Crypts and Things is a version of Swords and Wizardry, but the guy said, look, I want to make a very Weird Tales type game. And so before DCC, before Asajj Swords and Sorcerers, he basically made a game that it's very much like a Howard Clark Ashton Smith Lovecraft, and he does a great job. but he would have never been able to do that if somebody didn't already write, if Matt Fitch didn't already write Swords of Wizardry, or if, Gary did write OD&D. I mean, it all goes back to the, to the beginning. And so then you distill it down to like, okay, like one of the things he has in Crypts and Things is there's no other races but man is your race. And you're a human. You're not elves, dwarves, hobbits, whatever. We're not doing Tolkien. Sorry. We're doing, you're men, you're fighting really terrible things from the outer, realms and really awful monsters. It just kind of gets that whole conflict of man versus, monster. So it's really cool, But
a Robert E. Howard kind of approach. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could have done that 40 years ago because people wanted to play elves, they wanted to play dwarves, they wanted to play halflings, or centaurs or whatever. They wanted to play all these different characters. You wouldn't have been able, if you had a game back then and said, no, we're just playing humans, everybody would have walked, okay, well, we're going to go to Ed's table because Ed plays a Tolkien game and I want to play an elf, dude, so.
I'm glad you mentioned Astonishing, the Hyperborea stuff, because Jeff Talanian is he's a gem of a human being, man. Talk about talent.
He's great.
Talk about a talent.
Yeah, he's talented. Unlike anybody here, the man really has real talent. So yes, he knows this. No, that's a great system. If you've never looked at it,
he's on another level too. Creatively, man. I really enjoy reading his stuff, and I really enjoy that system. Again, there's a lot of new systems. Not saying new, a lot of systems that are out now that they're not the classic systems, but they remind you of that feel. The DCC being one of them, Hyperborea being another, and then Old School Essentials is another one.
Yeah,
that
it
is
really cleans up that whole BX.
Sure,
it doesn't change the rules, but my God, it presents it in a way that you go, oh, that is elegant. I never thought to say elegant.
That's why I loved when Labyrinth Lords died, because I'm like, oh, finally, here's the BX rules and it's actually in a format that I can read without having to flip back and forth and not make sense. I mean, I was really a huge fan of Labyrinth Lord when that came out.
By the way, since we mentioned Jeff, we're going to give him a shout out. Bundle of Holding. Everybody go to Bundle of Holding.
Oh yeah, he's doing a bundle right now.
Swordsman and Swordsman and Sorcerers of Hyperborea is on Bundle of Holding. You can get the rule book and the GM screen, and I forget what else for like less than $10.
That's crazy.
And then you can add in like 7 adventures for if you tack on like an extra 15 or so. It is an amazing deal. The adventures are spot on.
Yeah, those adventures alone just worth the price of admission.
Yeah,
they're so awesome.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So if you haven't checked out Astonishing Swordsman and Sorcerers Ash, I can't say it too many times because it's like I'm gonna stumble. Yeah, but if you haven't played it, if you haven't read the rules, they are amazing. If Glenn Hallstrom was here, you wouldn't be able to shut him up right now because Glenn would be like, "Oh my God, I love running it." It's just a great system, and the buy-in and Bundle of Holding is spot on. You really can't pass it up. So
Jeff does this cool thing too that I really like, where he puts footnotes in his adventures. Mm-hmm. So you'll be reading through, and then you'll see maybe a name or a term that you might not be familiar with, and it'll have like a little 3 next to it. And you look down at the bottom, and just like some books, you'll get in there and you read. Oh, you'll go, oh, that's what he meant. So his books are really not only well researched, but they're not hard to try to figure out what's going on. Or if you have a question about something, it's right there. And that's a little detail that I'd never seen anybody else do. That, man, I really, really like those little footnotes.
Yeah, I missed not having TotalCon this year because usually TotalCon, Jeff is right next to the Frog God booth. I get to cover Jeff's booth when he has to eat and do other necessities.
Same with Gary Con. He goes to Gary Con. He's usually next to us at Gary Con too. So miss having him there.
He's a good neighbor, like State Farm.
Yeah, he is. But no, that's if I was going to run a game and start and I couldn't use any of my rule sets I've used before, I would definitely do Astonishing Swordsman. That would be my rule system I'd use.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And it's kind of it feels like AD&D. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can see the influence on it if you've played AD&D 1E or 2E, and it's your comfort zone. You can pick up Astonishing Swordsman and go, "Wow, this feels like AD&D, just twisted and turned in different areas." So it's just a great option for you folks. So
yes,
I can't say enough.
And you couldn't be supporting a better dude by buying those products either.
Nah,
He's a top shelf dude.
yeah, he is. And folks, he should be at ShireCon in September. I know I'll be there. He's usually one of the special guests. So,
What cons are you guys going to this year?
North
I'm going to North
baby.
Texas.
Of course.
I got my shots. I got my shots.
I got my 2 shots. Rach has her 2 shots. So we will be there. Rach, I think it's her last weekend for her yoga training. So we might not see her much on Saturday and Sunday, as she'll be yogafying in the hotel room, I guess, to be the advanced instructor. But she's like, we're going. We got our shots. We're going. So it should be a lot of fun. And ShireCon and Game Hole looks to be going off.
Yeah, I'll be going to Game Hole. Yeah, I'm going
this
to
is
Game
my first year at Game Hole as well. Yeah.
Game Hole runs like clockwork.
Yeah,
it
is a really good job, Alex is. So Levi, are you coming to North Texas? What's your scoop?
I mean, I'll be there Monday afternoon.
Nice. There we go. That's yeah. All right. That's the way to get to my heart there, right there. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, man. I'll be there.
All right. Good deal.
So.
Nice.
Well, it's looking good because I saw the other day that we have 20% of Texas is 24. I think 25% of Texas is now shotted up, and then they're expecting 50% by June. So I think we're going to be doing really good. I have yet to run into somebody going to the con that hasn't had their shots yet. So I don't, probably because we're a bunch of old farts. So we've got our shots because we're all over 50. So
it was I went last year. I mean, and obviously it was very different than it normally would be, but it was weirdly endearing as well, because it was almost like there was this weird sort of camaraderie between all the people who were actually there, who were able to either make it, or it wasn't that long of a drive, or for whatever reason they were there. It was like this weird camaraderie. And I was able to get in a lot of games that I normally would have never gotten into, as far as with DMs whose games are usually full up, Well,
I think you traveled the farthest of anybody that came to our con. I think you traveled the farthest, because I think we probably 95% of the people there were from in-state. Lou came by. I think he was from California.
It was me and Chris Holmes, actually. We were the two that came.
Chris,
from California.
Chris, that's right. Chris was there, and because we only had about 60, 80 people and we basically encouraged people from out of state or from other places not to come, but it was we did a pretty good job. I thought it was definitely distanced because nobody was there in the whole hotel. Sure. So we were definitely distanced, and we all, we had masks and we all had our goo we rubbed all of our hands to prevent, which turns out now doesn't really help you because it's an aerosol virus. But we didn't know back then.
Yeah, we all had everybody that I talked to, it was just a great time, and everybody was super welcoming. And my first year there, you go into these things, and I didn't know what to expect, but it was unlike any con that I'd ever been to, but in the way that people were so approachable, and that folks were so nice, and it was like this weird little family that you guys had, and it wasn't like a cool kids club, No,
definitely not.
I'm talking to Casey for 2 seconds, and he's like, "Oh, hey, Larry, come over here," and it's Larry Elmore, and I ended up talking to him for like 30 minutes about bourbon and fishing. We don't mention D&D one time. I'm like, how cool is this?
I wish we could have Larry back, but he's had a rough year. He got really sick, and I don't know if we're ever going to be able to have him back, which really sucks because he had a great time that last year, which was 2019. 2019 was that was the last time we had him there. And he had a great time. Last year was fun, but we didn't have all the, we only had Diesel. I think Diesel was our only special. Oh, Christopher Clark was there, but because we told most of those people not to come, to stay at home. And it was funny because you got to treat every con like it's somebody's first con, because and that's why you got to make every con a special experience. And I was surprised last year we had people that was their first con, and I felt so bad. I wanted to say, look, it's not usually like this, but they were like, no, man, I'm having a great time. It's so because that was about the time when we'd been locked in since March, and everybody was like, I can't take it anymore. I just got to get out for a little while.
Right.
And, and that's why we were very careful about saying, okay, well, we're going to have this, but please don't come from out of state. And, we're going to have to wear a mask and, all the restrictions we put on them. And people still had a great time anyway, because people were just jonesing to get out of the house. And I think this year it's going to be doubly that way. I think people
I
are going to be
played more
like,
games in that 4 days than I had in a row in my entire life. Because it was, just as soon as I was done with one, you'd peek in and there'd only be like 3 players.
All there was games, and yeah, it'd be like one room.
In?
There's my favorite moment was going to the ballroom there, and there was one table in the middle of the ballroom with like 8 people, and that was the whole ballroom. Because we had the ballroom, and they gave us the whole hotel. We were probably one of the only conventions that happened last year. I think in the whole United States. I don't think there was very many. I'm actually surprised. I know we're going to see hopefully maybe the return of Gen Con. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh,
but,
well, Gen Con. Yeah, the return of Gen Con. Let's schedule it for Yom Kippur.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that until you told me, Gary.
I didn't know until I started seeing things pop on my feed, and it's like,
oh well. I don't understand why did they move from the original date anyway? It's only a month later. Is there really going to be that many vaccinations between August and September? I don't know. Maybe they know something we don't. We know that I don't. I don't know.
Here's going to be my guess, my assumption, my pissing in the wind, is that they figure every week they can punt is potentially an extra 5,000, 10,000 attendees. And at this point, every extra attendee is hopefully money in their pocket, because otherwise they're gonna, if they didn't have a con last year, they owe people money or tickets they paid for last year.
Right.
So now they have to find some way to break even. It's gonna be rough. And these I have people messaging me going, what the hell is a pop-up con at a store? and folks, if you don't know what a pop-up store is,
they're trying. Yeah, they're just trying.
Yeah, but it's not even it's like I took me a while to figure out what I live in New York City. It's like, what? This was an empty storefront. Now it's whatever for like 5 days, and then the store goes away. A pop-up store is a quick event at a location that was something else. Well, are you going to go to your local game store and say, hey, I attended Gen Con 2021 at Joe's Comic Books and Games? Because they had somebody running a demo of Magic the Gathering, and it was for Gen Con. No, you weren't at fucking Gen Con. I'm sorry.
No, that's. I don't know. Maybe.
What?
Counterpoint on that is that you were saying earlier that every con is somebody's first con, and if I had not gone, say, to Conestoga 13 years ago, if I just blown that off, there's not going to be very many people there. It's small. I'm like running one of the only games ever. It's not going to be a big thing. I never would have met Casey.
Okay.
Never would have pushed me into my first Kickstarter. I'd never be writing games, and we would not be having this conversation. So from little tiny things like that, you can have a waterfall, which, can change somebody's life. Like my whole life has changed because now I'm doing this indie publishing thing. So you never know.
Well, that's interesting. You say that because the first North Texas we only had about 60 people, and I'm absolutely serious. Out of that 60 people, probably 35 of them have had successful Kickstarter. I mean, we had Matt Finch, we had Bill Barsh. I mean, you just go down the list. I mean, the people that was, they came to North Texas and they hadn't published anything yet, and then they came there and they, were like, wow, this is so cool because there's all these, special guests here, and there's this guy I've heard of, before, and that's one of the things we wanted to build with North Texas was that, this is a place you can talk to creators, and you just, you don't have to wait in line, you don't have to, pay money to get an autograph, you just go sit down at the table, and there's, Errol Otis or Tim Kask or whatever, and you can pick their brains about stuff, and our guests to this date have been really good about doing that.
Well, nothing is worse than meeting like one of your heroes, whether or not it's a sports figure or an actor or an RPG artist or a writer. and then they turn out to be a dick. That's nothing's worse than that, because you're just totally crestfallen. And that's what's so great about North Texas, is that you do rub elbows with these folks, and none of them are terrible. None of them treat you like you're some sort of, like you're beneath them, or that you're not worth their time, or they're not trying to. You're not. Doug Kovacs isn't trying to rush you away from his table. If he wants to talk to you for 30 minutes, he will talk to you for 30 minutes about whatever.
Right.
Everybody's different, but none of them are rude or terrible or just obnoxious. Everybody was just so nice, and that's what I tell my friends. Like, you have to come to this con, because it's not like any other con.
Right. It's like coming home again. And the great thing about, listen, I love Doug, and every time at every convention, Doug and I always get a chance to talk. But I think his two big lines were the first time he met me at North Texas, and we sat down, we had breakfast, him, me, and Rach, and he finishes it with, if I didn't already get to know you, I wouldn't like you. I went, why? Because you're a fucking cop, but I wouldn't know that after getting to know you. Okay. And then I think it was a game hall a couple of years, maybe it might have been last game hall. I'm talking with Doug. We're talking for, I don't know, half an hour. He was like, oh, I really enjoy talking with you, but I enjoy Rachel more because she listens. And I was like, oh, I think I just got insulted there. Ouch.
He's earned
somebody
it, though,
compares,
right?
Somebody's compared Rachel to you. That's, come on, man. You knew you were going to lose in that comparison.
Oh well,
sorry.
yeah. I'm not gonna come out in that one. I understand that. And,
No, you're not gonna.
I'm blessed. My wife goes to conventions, works at the tables. The best with her was when were you there, Mike, when she was trying to explain the blight? Did you hear her trying to explain the blight?
Which was hilarious because she was trying to explain it in the terms of a mental health professional, which is pretty funny. That's not necessarily what you want to talk about your game. Is saying, if you know crazy people, this is great. This game's awesome. Yeah, if you got people with mental health,
you can also kill somebody.
This is the best game you can ever play.
Yeah. And they use baby's blood like a narcotic, and it's really interesting. It's like, all right, Rich, you got to step away from it.
All right, so I'm looking at Phylactery. We have $7,526. So let's get this to 8,000. I'm not going to cover it if it doesn't. Sorry, I had to sweat that out on Greg last week, a couple weeks ago. Not going to do that again. But the problem is I don't think we can get to 8,000 because they're only $15 a piece. Oh my gosh, we'd have to sell 100 of them. Oh dear. No.
This isn't QVC, right. Mike. It's not going to be like, come on.
No.
Now, if you ask now, you'll get this.
The last zine that I did was called Magic and Shit, which was just like a love letter that mixed, because in certain circles of D&D, like heavy metal and hard rock music is very influential in the way some people play.
Yes.
And for me as a young teenager, of course, coming from a rebellious small town in Arkansas, of course, heavy metal music was was right up my alley. So I made this like love letter. My best friend and I, we made a love letter to D&D and heavy metal music. So you have this very metal infused D&D resource. It's all magic items and artifacts, but it's very Black Sabbath, very Ronnie James Dio, very Judas Priest kind of influence. It's influenced by all the music we listen to, and we put a lot into that, and that was my most successful zine ever. It went over 10 grand.
Nice.
And it had the word shit in it. So it was shit. I thought I was gonna make like $2K, and that was gonna be
no. Come on, you can't offend old school gamers unless you like. I'm sorry, roll with advantage. No, I'm offended. You offended me if you're saying roll with advantage.
It's an OSR product. The OSR crowd turned out for it. They were like, we'll give it a try. So we worked hard not to disappoint. So we'll see how it comes out next month.
Listen, people buy Raggy's stuff, and it's got vaginas on the cover or stuff. I mean,
it's not mine. No.
Yeah, so it's like, wow, wait, this isn't quite jock-jockery. This is like just good in a slightly offensive manner. It's not offensive to be shocky. It's just cool.
Well, and the title came from like when we were teenagers, like 15, 16 years old. My friend, was brand new to the game. I mean, I'd been at it for 3-4 years at that time. And he was brand new to the game, and he was like, let me play one of those guys with the magic and shit, So when it came time to do this homage, we're like, we'll call it magic and shit. There we go.
There you go. Nice. Sweet.
Do we have it? So besides, I haven't seen the backlash of this. So Gen Con being on Yom Kippur, has that raised any sort of backlash, or they just
it raised an initial backlash, and Gen Con said they would make accommodations. I'm not Jewish. I don't know what accommodations that you can make for observant religious individuals for their holy day to make it okay for them to attend your convention that's being held during it. I don't know what accommodations you can make. It's like not like it's like I'm Catholic, so if you're holding a convention on Ash Wednesday, I don't know if you can have a priest come in and give me my ashes at the convention. I don't know what they're going to do to accommodate Yom Kippur. It sounds like they had no idea when they scheduled. I actually, I only knew because it was scheduled for the weekend of ShireCon, and somebody went, "Oh look, they moved the big con to ShireCon weekend because I guess ShireCon was a threat." And it's like, no, they don't care.
No.
It wasn't on the radar. And just like Yom Kippur wasn't on the radar. It's just it was probably how far back can we move it and not lose people, but hopefully still gain people. If they moved it, 2 months, then they're like, well, all right, now we're conflicting with Gamehole.
Well,
and
Gamehole
is on the radar. Yeah. So you don't want to do that.
It's summer, yeah.
So yeah, it's a weird time still, and I am thankful that I am vaccinated, and it only took like 5 or 6 days for my arm not to hurt, so I guess that's a good thing. Mike, how long did it take your arm?
My arm was fine. I just had a problem with nausea for like 3 or 4 days.
I had that for about 2.
Yeah.
I was doing my Altoid mints left and right. That's how I dealt with the nausea.
I think this is all part of when we're talking about the convention. It's all part of the fact that, and we talked about this back when the pandemic was going on, is that smaller conventions like Gamehole and GaryCon and North Texas are going to be able to get back to normal much, much quicker than the larger conventions like Origins, Dragon Con, Gen Con, San Diego Comic Con, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's going to be proven in the next couple of years because you still got a lot of people, myself included, who are very leery about attending a convention of 30,000 people, much less 60,000, whatever they're going to have at Gen Con this year, which I don't think they expect to have that many people. I don't think they're going to have 60,000. They even mentioned they're going to have limited numbers. Of course, they haven't said what those limited numbers are.
It's all what Indy tells them they can have, and that, again, by punting, the longer they can punt, the better a handle they'll have on their capacity and where it's going to be. Indiana probably told them, "Oh, we don't know where we're going to be in August." Well, how about September? Well, September will probably be better than August, but we don't know where we're going to be in September. All right, well, let's move it back 6 weeks in September because we're building time because they're going to have to make calls on attendance numbers probably 2 months before they're going to have to start. And now, 2 months before August, early August would have been early June. So they're hoping that extra month, maybe with the announcement of, everybody should be eligible to get the vaccine.
Right.
Maybe that'll give them the ability to pop the numbers up. I don't know.
How many people do they really want, though? I mean, what are they going to feel comfortable with, or what's the city going to feel comfortable with? Or the state.
Well, here's the thing. You have to remember too. Some states did this better than others, like Texas and Florida overall were better than others at balancing out the real world business aspects and the balance of real world safety aspects. Other states like New York State said shut everything down, and now businesses in my neighborhood that have been there for 40, 50 years, my pizzeria, over 50, almost 55, they haven't reopened. They could have reopened. So if they haven't reopened now, they're not reopening. They own the property.
Yeah,
So I know
that's
that
too bad.
they're not coming back. So with Gen Con, we don't know the finances, and it has nothing to do with Zach Smith suing Gen Con. That's not going to affect any finances. Even if he should win a monetary award, it will affect things for a while. It's not like he's going to get a lawsuit in before the convention kicks off. But they've got to, as opposed to making a profit, they're going to be like, how can we minimize our losses? And this is tough. They're gonna push to be as open as they can be safely. What does that mean? I've got no fucking idea. And Indiana,
I don't think that they probably don't either. I mean, because things can change. Things have changed just in the last 3 months, first 3 months of this year. I mean, we started out this year looking one way, and now we're sitting here going, "Holy crap! We're 20% vaccinated, looking at 50% in 2 or 3 months. That's crazy." So.
And Indianapolis is probably saying, our budget, their city budget is probably shot. So they want it to be as open as it can be, again, safely. But where do those two sliders meet? And that's going to be an interesting way to see, because we can spitball this but we don't. We know that the business numbers are going to have a great effect on not just Gen Con, but on Indianapolis, because that's a huge chunk of that city's budget. They make a lot of money off that, and businesses make a lot of money off it.
It killed them last year because Gen Con is not only the number one moneymaker for the city, it's the number one moneymaker for the state. And remember, this is a state that has the Indianapolis Colts playing. So their last couple of years, because I remember the last time I went was like 2008, 2009. At that point, Gen Con was number 2 to Colts games. It's past it. It's number 1. Now it's number 1. Colts games are 2. So they're bringing more people to the city for Gen Con than they are for the the 8 Colts games they have every year, which is crazy. So yeah, that was a huge money kick in the nads by not having Gen Con last year. And I mean, I think the Colts games. I think Indianapolis was one of the states that didn't allow people. I can't remember if they did or not. I mean, Dallas allowed some people. I don't think Indianapolis allowed really any people. So yeah, they've had a whole year just taking it in the shorts.
So again, punting 6 weeks could potentially be millions of dollars for the city, for the state, for Gen Con. So they probably punted as far as they could comfortably punt. And I would guess that even if that meant like, somebody goes, that's weekend of Yom Kippur. That's only Wednesday and a Thursday. No big deal. Well, whatever. They'll just come later, because they don't. Again, 1 week might be the difference of a couple thousand in attendance, depending on where those numbers come out.
Sure. Yeah, if you're the city planner, that is that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, you gotta. They're gonna have to push it as far as they comfortably can, and and you have to still do it with the perception of, we're doing this to keep you safe.
Right, and that's going to be the number one factor. Most of this is when do you? And this is not just convention. This is we're talking about everyday life. At what point are we going to be able to basically scoreboard? We won. We're okay now, because there's. I mean, you guys are on Facebook too. There's a lot of worry warts. They're like, hey, we're never going to get back to normal. That they don't want to believe things get better. And I understand there's some people that that's how they deal with life. Is they're never, I can't be too happy, because if I'm too happy, something's going to kick me in the nads. And so they're like, oh yeah, we're never going to be back to normal. But I think we're looking at it, right? 2022, if we don't have any major setbacks, we're looking at 2022 being because I see a lot of people right now going, I'm not going to go to convention now. And we people that I've got private messages from about North Texas, like, I would love to go to your con, but I just don't feel 100% safe right now. I'm going to feel much better in 2022. So I think when we're seeing the floodgates trickle open this year, next year they're really going to open up, and I don't know what that means. Does that mean that we're going to be back to totally normal, and we're going to have stadiums full of people, and we're going to have conventions with 60,000 people? I mean, I don't know. I'm interested in seeing though. I think it's an interesting question, and I wonder how people are going to be personally. Are some people going to view the vaccination like a, something? I mean, it can stop anything because it can't stop anything. I mean, you're 95% protected, but it's still only 95%. I mean, you can get sick.
Well, here's the thing. That's what explained to me my cardiologist. He goes, 10 days after my first shot, he goes, I was effectively immunized against hospitalization and serious illness. He goes, you can still have symptoms, you can still get sick, you can still feel miserable. He goes, 10 days after your second shot, you're about 94% protected against getting symptoms at all. So if you do get it, you should be asymptomatic and you probably won't even know it. So that's the whole thing. So once you've been immunized, you're pretty much, are there exceptions yet? You always have that, 1 in 100,000 chance that you're going to get it and have symptoms. You're the one that the vaccine somehow did not, respond as they thought it was going to. But I think that what it's going to come down to, though, it doesn't really matter how effective the vaccine is. What's going to matter is that some people, and you mentioned that some of them already, are going to be gun shy after this for years. I mean, listen, I already, as somebody who worked in Manhattan for, I don't know, the last 14 years of my career, I hate crowds. I would never go to a Gen Con. Gary Con was getting too crowded for me.
Yeah.
I was feeling claustrophobic. I'd never want to go to a convention like that again, just for the idea of, well, now I believe in crud. I believe in it. I'm a believer.
You caught pneumonia or close to. You got. Yeah.
I got an upper respiratory that progressed into pneumonia. I don't blame TotalCon for it. It's just, it's what's you're around it. So I think that they're going to open up to whatever numbers they can grab, but I think that there's going to be this new imposed limit that the public themselves are going to put on a lot of these events. You're not going to sell out ball games. You're not going to sell out football crowds. The NFL is going to have to change their policy of, there won't be any local broadcast if we don't sell out the football stadium. Well, fuck you. It ain't going to happen. Because some people are just going to go, I just don't see it. It's like, do I want to expose myself to the flu even, and spend $100 for the ticket, let alone $15 for a hot dog and another $12 for a beer or whatever they're going to rob me blind for? I can watch from home. And we've all learned that too. We're gaming from home, right?
Right.
I mean, my big purchase this year for the entertainment was moving from a 40-inch TV set to a 65-inch. And you know what? I haven't missed not going to theaters because I have a 65-inch TV now, and it does damn well. And
let's talk about this for a second because let's just talk about this. I have a major disagreement with Jolly Blackburn on something because he has talked about how he is probably never going to go back to the theater and he doesn't miss going to theaters at all. And because he and his wife have a pretty good setup, apparently have a big screen TV, they got sound, blah, 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 this, that. I personally love to go to the theater. I can't wait to go back to the theater. And honestly, I was telling my wife, I don't look forward to movies at home at all because I have a pretty big TV, but we don't have surround sound. We don't have a lighting system. We have a couch. I don't have a pretty girl come and serve me a beer and a hamburger. I mean, all this. All right.
Time. You live in Texas. I live in New York State. We don't have anybody coming serving us a beer and giving us a burger in our movie theaters.
You really need those. Yeah.
Listen, I stadium seating. My first stadium seating was Wonder Woman with my niece, who told me that Wonder Woman was not appropriate for a child her age. Jesus.
Damn you. Taking your kid to see Wonder Woman, a positive female portrayal. How dare you, sir?
Yeah, no. They're killing people, Uncle. I don't think I should be watching this. Like,
they're Nazis.
They're not real people.
They're
but it was my first time going to a movie theater where I actually had that stadium seating with a big ass chair that was comfortable. That didn't have layers of gum on it, and what could have been puke, what could have been soda, I don't know, on the chair from the previous person. it was heck, a chair that worked and didn't like fall backwards on me or realize the seat was half broken. This is New York. I know Texas has it differently. Screw you. But
New York was the home of the grindhouse theaters.
yeah, I mean, they
Oh.
weren't.
Back in the
They
70s
weren't.
and 80s.
No, okay, you're right. Because okay, here's how I'm approaching this. Okay, so here's what I do to go see a movie now. I get on my app and I look, and it shows me the theater. There's only like 25. The biggest theaters in Texas now maybe have 50 seats because they have these giant reclining seats with a table thing that swings over and a drink holder, and you're sitting there like this. It's gigantic. You have so much space there. You have, and when you get there, there's a menu, and a little girl comes by and says, "Okay, if you need a menu, just push this button here, and I'll come over and take your order." And so you push the button, she comes take your order. I'll have let me see, you got 25 craft beers. I'll have this one, and I'll get this burger and this. I mean, that's what a movie experience is like now. And then before the movie's over, or the movie's over, they come and they drop your little ticket off, and I mean, yes, it's expensive, but it's date night. To me, it's like date night because you're going to go.
Are you talking about the Alamo, like the Alamo theaters?
But see, they're all like that now, Levi. Yeah, the Alamo theaters like that, but that's how because they had to compete. They're all like that in Texas now. There isn't any. If there's a theater like that, they're a dollar theater. No legitimate theater does not have what I just described because they wouldn't get. Nobody would go. Everybody goes to these theaters with the big giant recliners, and like I said, maybe only 25. I mean, they have theaters that only have like 15 seats because they're the smaller ones, and you go in there, there might be not anybody in there. So that's what I'm approaching from a movie standpoint. That's what I'm approaching it is that it's no longer you're in the cramped little seat like Eric describes, just vomit on the floor. There's juju bees sticking to your shoes, this, that. It's not like that. It's carpeted. It's quiet. I mean, it's just really, really nice. And so that's what I'm looking at when I approach the theater. Now, maybe it's different from up north. Maybe that's why I'm not getting what you're talking about there, Eric, because Houston, we don't have those kind of theaters anymore.
David says Houston still has normal theaters.
Well, of course, because it's Houston. Houston's a cesspool. My God.
All right, come on, man.
Come on, man.
Look, the reason Houston floods so much is because it's like a toilet that has to clean itself out every once in a while.
Man, that's foul pool, man.
There's a big Dallas area, Texas area, Houston area thing that goes on. So yes, we have a rivalry there with those guys. But no, yeah. So really, Dallas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you have all these very nice theaters, especially in the burbs, and they're just it's a different experience. So I guess you approach it from that viewpoint. Yes, I be getting to the point because I remember I think the last movie I saw in what I quote a regular theater, I think my leg fell numb because I was so cramped in the seat because I'm a big guy that it cut off the circulation of my leg. I told my wife, I'm not going to go see movies anymore. It's like, well, maybe we should try those, Alamo theater and this and that. I'm like, okay, we'll try it. And then once I went, I was like, it's like you go first class in an airplane, right? You're never going back. Right. Oh, no, I'm not going to coach ever again. Forget it. I'm going first class from here on out. So that's what my movie experience is like. So when these people say that they'd rather see a movie at home, unless you have a home theater, I don't get it because the movie experience, at least to us in our situation, is incredible. And like I said, you book your seat online, so you go there. You don't even have to go to the counter. You walk in and show them your app, and they go beep, and then you walk right in. You don't even need a ticket. You just do it online, and there's your seat. It's all reserved, and you go sit down. Your seat's ready. You can get there literally 1 minute before the movie starts, and just walk right into the theater, and you walk right in. You sit down. So I guess that's how I'm approaching it. So I have an issue with people saying they're never going to see a movie again because I can't wait for movies to start up again.
Never say never,
right? Yeah.
I honestly, when it comes to that, I'm a huge movie lover. I love cinema, indie films, mainstream film. I just love it all. I'm such a huge geek for movies in general, and they don't even have to be genre movies or superhero movies or anything. I just love movies. So I agree with you on the movie experience. There's something about going to see a movie for the first time. You're seeing it this is the first time you're ever seeing it. There's only one first time. You've got the surround sound. The audience hopefully is being quiet. There's nobody next to you that's decided to kick off their shoes and prop their feet up on the bar. Hopefully everything kind of falls into place.
But see,
and you get to see an awesome movie for the first time in the theater. There's something special about that. There really is. But I can also I like to sit at home and I'll pick a brand new movie off of Amazon. I could do it that way too. I like to have both if I can.
Sure. Oh, it's great to have both. Yeah, it's great to be able to get a movie. And I think it's cool the way they now have, look, you can see it in the theater, you can stream it. I think that's a great idea, and I'm surprised it took the studio so long to come up with that. Because I noticed the other day, my wife said, "Did you see that Black?" Because my wife, I've got her hooked on Marvel Universe movies now. She's never read a comic book in her life, but she saw every MCU movie with me. So she's like, "Did you notice that Black Widow is going to be streaming and at the theater?" It's like, I don't want to stream it. And I was like, "Well, we'll go see it at the theater. I don't care." I can't wait to start going back to the theater, because I'll tell you what, when you have that experience, and I'll give you a couple examples. The first Avengers movie, we saw it at a packed theater, and it was absolutely electric in there. I mean, it was probably one of the bigger theaters. It still had the nice seats and everything, but it was bigger. It was maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred people. It was huge, but it was just absolutely electric. And it was such a cool experience, because I remember sitting there, and there was a girl right next to me and her boyfriend, and then my wife was right next to me, and in front of me there was another couple, and about 10 minutes of the movie, this guy's girlfriend in front of me decides she's going to get on her phone and start fucking around with her phone.
Oh, you see,
and I'm sitting there going, "Holy crap! I've been waiting to see Avengers my whole life, and here it comes." And then can you hear me? Did I drop out?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then
You're back.
the girl next to me, I'm sitting there going, "Do I say something? Do I so that this that?" The girl next to me goes, his loudest voice, she goes, "Hey, bitch, turn your fucking phone off. I'm trying to watch the movie." And everybody just started laughing, the whole theater, and she just like put her phone down. And so after the movie was over, I shook her hand and said, "Thank you so much for doing that," because I didn't know what I was going to do. But after the movie, we sat there, and my wife and I talked to this couple for like 15 minutes. It was great. I mean, that's the kind of experience you don't get at home, because we're sitting there and it's just a really exciting movie, and everything's great, just so incredible. And like I said, afterwards, we're sitting there, everybody's just buzzing about the movie, how great it was. And I'm talking to this couple, and I'm just thinking, you just don't get that at home. We've been stuck at home, by ourselves for so long. I can't wait to get out and see those movies again. Endgame was another one. We saw Endgame in the theater. It was absolutely electric.
Well, that's the point.
Like, oh my God.
Would you rather see the newest Quentin Tarantino movie, or The Force Awakens for the first time, or Avengers Endgame, or one of these big milestone movies like an Avatar, or something like that? Would you rather see that at home on a very nice screen, or would you rather see it in a great big theater with the surround sound, with your popcorn, with everyone else there who also wants to be quiet and watch the movie and is just as invested, and that will cheer when certain things happen? There's just something about that. It's just it has a whole vibe of its own.
Pulp Fiction. I saw Pulp Fiction in the movie theater. We had a ball because we didn't really know what to expect. Yeah, we'd seen Reservoir Dogs or whatever. So, and it's back then when you didn't have the internet 24/7 telling you what every movie was going to be about. And, I remember I went and saw it with my brother because we were both kind of budding Tarantino fans. And we just loved it. I mean, and the whole audience is laughing, and they're just like, "Oh my God, can you believe that?" I mean, just everybody's they're all invested, right? And it was so sometimes you just get that perfect moment when the audience is in it, everybody's in it, and it's yes, every once in a while you get somebody that's loud. Or we went and saw the movie before Endgame, and a couple there had a crying baby, and I actually felt bad for them because they took turns walking the baby out. I'm like, neither of them saw the movie because they're then they had to come back in, and the other one took it out, and I was like, and it did bother me watching the movie because I'm feeling bad for this couple, and then my wife's like, "Well, if they wanted to see it so bad, they could have waited 2 weeks." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess that's true." They could have waited for a baby.
But you can't wait 2 weeks anymore. You have to stay off your phone because
no, you don't. You have to be. Yep. Somebody's going to spoil it. So I understand that, but yeah, that seems to happen less and less now. People are more invested, and plus, when you get these nicer movie theaters, you get people more invested in the movie because they paid more money. You don't get the screamers.
Maybe your friends, but my friends are shit.
They're still in there making noise and throwing things at the screen.
No, they're like, "Hey, I know that it's 12:01 a.m. and that you've only been in the theater for a minute, but." What did you think of the fact that so and so died in the first set? You're like, I'm
no way.
Kill your face.
That's kill. Yes, no. And you know what? That is a problem that we have in our society is spoilers, because you cannot wait. You're right. You can't wait a week. And luckily, my wife doesn't use Facebook, because I'm like, I mean, I knew everything that happened in Endgame before it came out. So I watch my wife's reactions because I like watching her reactions. That makes me enjoy the movie. Because I said, they're going, well, I know everything that happened because I'm on Facebook. You know, everything's there. But, you know, just watching her reactions was the fun part, and listening to the reactions of everybody else in the theater. But you're right. You can't be surprised by a movie anymore. Like I've told the story before, but I can't tell you the amount of movies I walked in not knowing anything. Indiana Jones, the first one, didn't know a thing.
Of course.
I saw a picture of Harrison Ford, knew he was in Star Wars, saw a picture of him in a fedora, thought that looks cool. Terminator, nothing. It was a time travel movie with a robot. I don't know. Alien, not a thing. It was in space. It was an alien. I don't, you know. So
that must have been a heck of a shock.
Road Warrior. A guy had recommended it to me. I go, isn't that based on that stupid? Isn't it that stupid Mad Max sequel? He goes, no. Don't think about Mad Max. Just go in and watch this movie. You're going to love it. And so you never have those moments. I feel sorry for kids nowadays. They never have those moments where they can just walk in cold and just like, whoa, that you know. I mean, I worked for a music store for about 5 or 6 years, and sometimes we get comp tickets for movies too. And that was the only time in the last 30 years that I could still walk into a movie and not know what was going on. Because you would get comp tickets and the movie wouldn't even be, nobody would know anything about it. It was right before the internet became really big. But yeah, nowadays you just, you know, you can't do it.
When we were younger, if you remember, the only time that you could get any news about like a Star Wars movie or Indiana Jones or anything like that is if you picked up Starlog. Or
Fangoria. Fangoria was great too. But yeah, Starlog. Yeah.
Or if you were a member of the Star Wars fan club.
You got promo. Yeah, Fangoria was great.
You know?
We would pass around issues of Fangoria in high school because it would tell you all. I remember I still have the issue with the Conan movie coming out because like, oh, you're a huge Conan fan. And so, you know, and also there was little blurbs about all the movies coming out. I'm like, whoa, there's all kinds of cool movies coming out. I'd never heard of these movies, you know, because back then you didn't have the internet. You didn't have the kind of publicity you had. So you didn't know all these things. And that's something that it's really sad that kids miss nowadays because you're right. It's so ridiculous the amount of. I mean, one of the things I like. Okay, so WandaVision was just ended a few weeks ago, and it was so hilarious because I don't have Disney Plus, but I know what happened in every episode of WandaVision because it was all over the internet.
Right.
And the funniest part was after every episode came out, there was 100 fan theories about what was going on. I mean, just literally 100. Like there'd be all these posts all over the internet, all these online journals. Like, here's what it means. The last episode of WandaVision, and then I think by the end of the WandaVision, nobody got any of them right. But it was just ridiculous that the whole cottage industry has spun up around. We're going to predict what's going to happen in Game of Thrones or WandaVision or whatever the newest hottest series is, and yet. It's like the weather. We don't hold it against the weatherman. He could be wrong 100 times. We're never going to remember it the next year. The same with this. I mean, these people are wrong more than they're ever right, yet we just still keep reading well, here's what the real secret is to Winter Soldier. It's going to be this.
That for me, that's half the fun. So like me being a huge Star Wars fan, and it doesn't matter what version of Star Wars it is. I like it all. I mean, I'm just a huge
heretic.
I'm a huge mark. If there was ever a mark for Star Wars, it's this guy. I mean,
you and James Spawn. You and James Spawn are brothers. Then yes,
I'm telling you,
that's
man,
James Spawn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when those movies were coming out, The Force Awakens and all the other sequels, there was just for months, years even, there was just all this talk about. This is what's happening, or these are the theories. And for me, that as the build up to the actual movie, that's half the fun. Is talking with your friends, like, hey, this guy he has a lightsaber that comes out both ends, or this guy he has the little side guards on it.
Yep.
Is Luke going to do this? Is so and so going to be in the movie? There was all these fan theories. And they very rarely ever turn out to actually be
sure.
True or not. But the speculation, to me, it just adds to the experience. So that when I finally get in the theater on that night, I'm sitting there, debut. I've got my popcorn, got my Coke. I'm wide-eyed like I was at 4 years old watching Darth Vader stroll across the screen at the drive-in. I'm ready. I'm pumped, and that experience is just, perfect for me.
Well, but the problem with that is that yeah, well, while that's like that, it makes me mad because now what we have is fanboy. I don't know what you call. I need to coin a name for this. It's like fanboy unrequited love. I don't know, but you get these people that when their personal theory doesn't happen, they get pissed off. And I saw people that had with that. I saw that with WandaVision. There were some people that just had this wild speculation, right? And like over the top stuff. And when it didn't come true, they dissed WandaVision. They said this is a terrible show because it didn't confirm the fan theory that I had. And I saw so many people that did that. They were like, hold on. So it didn't end the way you wanted it to end, and now it's a terrible movie. Oh yeah, it's terrible now because it should have done this. Like, ay. But that's just the kind of society we're in, right? It's all, it's all about me. So, yeah, it didn't do what I wanted it to do, so I didn't like it. So, I had a friend tell me that Doctor Strange, because which I thought was a good movie. I like Doctor Strange a lot. Probably not my favorite MCU movie, but I thought it was really good. He thought it was the worst movie ever because it wasn't exactly the Doctor Strange movie he wanted. Like, dude, back it down a little bit. It was,
but listen, I'm familiar with feeling like that. My favorite Lovecraft story is The Color Out of Space. I love that story. I think it's just perfect on every level. And then when that movie came out, The Color Out of Space,
Nick Cage didn't do a great job. Come on now.
Well, no, I mean, and listen, I know that there are a lot of people who like it, but to me, I felt like it was the scene in The Godfather where Marlon Brando's crying after his son dies. He goes, "Look what they did to my boy." That's how I felt about, The Color Out of Space, because I love and cherish that story so much and have read it just so many times that I just felt like it was butchered. But on the other hand, I can also go, listen, some people, this was their first entry into that story and they loved it. And it's great for those people. But for me, I was just, so crestfallen,
Well, they butchered my favorite Lovecraft story is Dreams of the Witch House, and there was a version of that for I can't remember the horror, whatever. I can't remember who did it. It was a famous director. That was butchered also. I just remember because it was just so gory. It was over the top gore. And I mean that's my favorite Lovecraft story ever. And so about the second person who's torn to pieces in the movie, I'm like, that never happened in the story. I'm sitting there watching it. The friend I watched it with, she's like, I can't even watch this. This is so disgusting. And I'm like, I know. This isn't Lovecraft. Lovecraft is more about suggestion, and actually, he's more about tell them and show them. And
all the best Lovecraft films, Lovecraftian films, are not Lovecraft stories. You know what I mean? None of them are Lovecraft stories. So,
right. Same with Conan. Yeah, they haven't done Conan right yet, but they don't know how to actually adapt Robert E. Howard stories. So if they ever decide to do that, they might have a good Conan story someday.
Somebody's going to get it one day. I have faith that somebody's going
to sit down and say, "Hey, let's do Tower of the Elephant."
Right.
Great idea! It
needs like a Jon Favreau kind of guy who understands Star Wars and can give you a Mandalorian kind of take on a level of enthusiasm on Conan, and somebody will do that one day. It's just not in the cards right now.
Let's do something that's never been done before. Let's adapt an actual Robert E. Howard story. Oh, come on, we can't do that. That's never been done before. Let's just do it. I mean,
just pick the name. Just pick the name. That's all you need. It'll sell.
If that's what they did, I mean, the best Conan movie ever was the second movie that was written by two comic book writers, Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway,
because they knew the property.
Yeah, they knew the property. I mean, the first one's okay, but the second one, I know it gets a lot of hate, but it's written exactly like a Conan story, and it's very much like
people seem to hate that movie. I saw it with my dad in the theater when I was like 12. I love it.
Yeah,
it is hokey and silly. But
it's very hokey and silly, but I think it does. And also, I think it's very much a D&D story, because if you're going to make a D&D story, that's what you do. It's a party of adventurers that get together. They all go on a mission, and it's great that way. So that's what a D&D movie needs to be about. There's
an evil wizard. There's a princess. Yeah. There's a monster. There at the end, there's a god. A sorceress.
There's some cheap humor. There's everything. Oh yeah,
secret doors. There's even a Ben Bar's lift gates roll.
Yes, exactly. There is.
It's most definitely.
Wilt Chamberlain. Come on. How could you? You can't.
That's
You know,
you get to see Strength 18 double lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, anyway,
God.
that's my one beef. That's my beef with Jolly is that some of us like to see movies in the theater. So I'm gonna come out and say it, just to say that I love seeing movies in the theater. I can't wait for him to come back. I will be in my movie seated. Our theaters are open around here. The problem is the first run movies are just terrible now. I mean, the stuff that they're showing right now is it's stuff that they were never going to actually show in a first run movie, so they don't really have anything good yet.
Jolly's another one of those guys who is a treasure. I've never met him. I've just talked to him online. I don't know him at all. But he kept the gaming magazine alive. I mean, let's face it. Dragon went away, White Dwarf went away, all the gaming magazines went away except for Knights of the Dinner Table. And he actually helped keep my foot in the hobby and in comic books for that matter. He just delivers quality every single month. That little gaming magazine, it's so perfect. It's so him. It's so gets across a tone, I guess that you could say that nobody else has. It's a very unique tone, which I can only imagine is him. So, dude, he's a treasure.
It's really interesting because I at this point I think he might only be doing the magazine for 10,000 people, and I mean I don't know, maybe 3,000 people, but yeah, that's an amazing accomplishment. He's approaching issue 300 with that, and I just think that is pretty amazing accomplishment that he's been able to trudge along so long without changing the quality of the stories. I mean, he hasn't said he's going to stop. I mean, he's going to keep going, I guess, until nobody wants to buy it, which God knows when that'll be. But yeah.
Well, and he's kept up the quality of them too, as far as not just the quality of the book, but he improves.
Right.
The stories get better, the interconnectedness gets better, but really it's the tone. He understands what gamers are like. So when you're reading an issue of Knights of the Dinner Table, you're like, I know that guy, and I know that guy, and I know that guy, because I have friends who are either like these guys or some sort of weird mixture of these guys. And he just that whole team over there at Kenzer, man, they get it.
And I think that's what we talk about. Derek and I talk a lot when the upcoming D&D movie is that the problem with D&D movies is you haven't had anybody ever do a D&D movie. They actually got it right. They don't get it. I mean, it's just not something they hear D&D. It's like a Conan movie. They hear Conan, they think, oh, he's this big muscly guy. We'll get Jason Momoa to play him. He'll fight a monster. That's a Conan movie. It's not a Conan movie. And the same thing with D&D. There's a specific feel you've got to have. You've got to have somebody that's invested, knows what they're doing to do a D&D movie the right way. And and that's what's going to be. That's why Eric and I, when we talk about it, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking you got to do Dragonlance, because at least with Dragonlance you have a script to follow. You have a beginning, middle, end. I don't trust these guys to make a D&D movie with squat unless they've got some kind of game plan to follow. I don't think they know what they're doing. I think they think D&D. They think, oh yeah, it's a bunch of guys with swords, and they run around a dungeon, and they kill a monster. We got to put a dragon in there somewhere too, by the way. And I mean, that's all. I think that's as far as their thinking goes. At least up until now, that's as far as the thinking's gone.
I can remember sitting in that theater when that Dungeons and Dragons movie came out, and watching it with a friend of mine who was also a player, and we're watching it unfold. And at the end of it, I'm thinking to myself, if Marlon Wayans is the best part of your movie, I turned to him and I said, well, at least there was a beholder. And we both just laughed. And we went on, but that was about it, man.
That was pretty. I'd forgot how bad it is. I happened to watch catch a few minutes of it on a late night TV station.
Oh man, Jeremy Irons is just he's just chewing the scenery for all it's worth, and then you got the guy. The warrior, he's
the blue lipstick. Yeah, it's not real. Yeah,
Thora Birch riding around on a dragon and having no idea what any of this is about. And then,
she was just an American Beauty like a couple years earlier. Was like, oh, she should win an Academy Award. Then she just her career went to the toilet after that. That was the curse of D&D. I don't think Jeremy Irons did anything. I don't know what Jeremy Irons did after that either. I think it killed their careers. No,
Jeremy Irons has been in a ton of stuff. Yeah. He was in Watchmen.
Oh, that's right. He was just loving, but he was just loving it. He was just like, yeah.
No, he was
so,
like, "Look, give me my paycheck."
Yeah.
All right, that's
Yeah.
Well, somebody said he's only in the movie. If you don't, I don't really remember this, but he's only in the movie for like 15 minutes. He just has a
I
few
mean, they
scenes.
just backed
Boom,
the
he's
stuff
out.
to his
Yeah.
lawn and dumped the money out onto his lawn. You know,
It's
we
like,
need a legitimate actor in here. Can you
right.
please
We
come
need
through
a
the
name
scenery?
people will recognize because one of the Wayans brothers just isn't going to be enough.
But you know,
It's like-
he was surprisingly the best part of that movie. And then when you go on to watch him in like serious things, you're like, oh, that guy can act. Like he's not just a comedian. Like
Right.
he actually can act pretty good.
It reminds me of Michael Caine was he was in Jaws 4 and he missed the Academy Awards where he won the Academy Award for Best Actor. People said, "Man, you must have been really bummed out because here you are on location filming Jaws 4, which is a stinko of a movie." He said, "How can you reconcile that in your mind?" He goes, "Well, I look at it this way: Jaws 4 paid for my vacation villa in Bermuda." He said, "So as far as I'm concerned, it all worked out really well."
But it's still a win-win.
Yeah, I still got the Academy Award and I got paid. So one of those guys, look, pay me and I'll do whatever, man. Just
Sure.
slap that paycheck down and and here I am. I'll do it. I mean, Nick Cage is at that point now where he's trying to pay off his IRS debts. It's like, look, whatever.
Sure, yeah, but Nick Cage will look at a menu upside down and say, "Oh, I must make this movie." Like he'll do anything.
It's gotten to that point. You're right.
But
because,
sometimes he does these movies that don't look so good, and then it turns out they're pretty good. Every 10th movie or so, you get a real stunner out of it.
You know what?
People forget he was an Oscar winner. The guy can act. He can really do it
he
when he wants to.
He's been doing these grindhouse movies that are not too bad. Did you see the one where it's the girl's name and he's like killing
Mandy.
a bunch of bad guys? Mandy, that's crazy. That thing is
great.
That is grindhouse, pure grindhouse right there. It is awesome.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's an
So
insane flick.
he's gone from an Academy Award winner to a grindhouse featurette. So
But he got a lot of that movie
crazy.
reignited his career. He got a lot of work after. He's been getting a lot of work after that. People forget like how good he really is when he wants to be. You know?
Well, when you do 6-7 movies a year, you gotta have a few that aren't stinkers.
I mean, he's got to have like 100 movies or more under his belt by now.
I counted one time how many movies. I counted one time. If you look at the movies he's done since, I think he got in a lot of trouble with the IRS and the early odds.
Right.
I mean, like a lot of trouble. He ended up selling stuff. He owed like millions of dollars, and so he pretty much just started taking whatever movie came along. And I think it's from if you go to the IMDb and look from I think it's 2010 on. It is ludicrous how many movies the man he did. Somebody was saying like he did more movies in his career than Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney. I mean, like they named like 15 actors from the golden years, all put together. Just in the last 10 years, he's done more movies than these guys. Oh yeah, we'll have to have you on again and talk about our favorite grindhouse movies then sometime.
Oh, anytime, man. I'd love to.
Grindhouse edition.
I'm a huge fan of that genre of films. Yeah. So, and speaking of Grindhouse Edition, at North Texas this year, there is a copy of Phylactery 2 that is our Grindhouse Edition that has a different cover and some different interior art. We only made 50 of them, so I'll be bringing those with me to I'll have some for you and your staff, but then the rest go to
Paola Plugola. Yes, definitely.
Well, I mean, something's got to pay for the con, but they're good. I mean, it's a good zine, but there's only 50 of them, so.
Well, it's getting, I just noticed we kept you a little late here. It's getting a little late, but
it's a good hang, man.
Why don't you go ahead and pimp the Phylactery one more time before we get off here tonight, and definitely support Levi with this.
Yeah, Phylactery 3 is up on Kickstarter right now. It's OSR fanzines, 48 pages, saddle stitched. Those zine sized. It is just jam-packed full of magic items, artifacts, relics, bad guys, monsters, fell locations, secret organizations. There's just all kinds of stuff in there. And I'm not reprinting anything from a previous source. I'm not putting long, drawn-out charts or random tables or anything in there. This is just content that's all new, all brand new. That's never been seen before, and it's direct plug and play from the page to the table, so that you can I like this, I don't like that. Fine, you've got so many pages in there that you can just choose this and then disregard that. I literally want you to choose the best stuff and disregard the rest. So it's got a cheap price point, and I think it's extremely useful if you're a DM who is looking for OSR content. So there you go.
Great. And I just looked. I thought I'd backed it, and I hadn't. So I'm going to back this right now.
Oh, so you'll bring it to $3.98.
Hey, all right,
See,
all right.
You're doing your share, Mike. You're doing your share.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't back it. I thought I already backed it, but I didn't.
I'm doing my part.
There you go. Levi, thank you for joining us, man.
Yes,
This is a really
Thanks,
great
Bob.
hang, man. You guys really work well off one another, man. You're
because we worked the convention.
Yeah, we
for
did.
years
We did the
side.
convention scene, man. It changes a man. It's like the foxholes of Vietnam or something.
It changes a man.
Yeah, it's. I know intimate things about Mike, and Mike
I know,
knows intimate
yeah.
things about me.
We experience things in that foxhole that our wives will never understand.
One of
It
my
was my
favorite
first
things
Gary
is
Con.
right before
God.
which big con is it where you and Zach go on the drive and you guys?
That's usually Gary Com. We do Game Hole also, which we're gonna be doing Game Hole again this year. It looks like, doing the drive, so that'll be fun.
It always cracks me up because you guys are doing your food posts. What does he call you? The most organized man in America.
The most organized man in America, which is the biggest joke ever. Yes. I think we're going to be doing another drive this year, so that we'll have to broadcast live from the drive if we do that again. So, are y'all going to be at NTRPG Con this year? Everybody on this page should be at NTRPG Con. Yes,
most
we
definitely.
all will be, Brian, definitely. So, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
It was great to see you again, Levi. I love talking to you, man. You're an awesome dude, and
I appreciate that, man. It's very kind of you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, and anytime you're always welcome back. I guess we will have to do a Grindhouse edition. It might have to be.
That'd be a lot of fun, man. I got some gems. I guarantee you guys have never seen.
Well, no, see, if we're gonna do that, we're gonna have to have a viewing list beforehand, so we can all find your things, and then we come in and we actually discuss it.
Don't tell Glenn about that show if we have it, because Glenn will be on the show and monopolize the entire 2 hours talking about Grindhouse. So,
folks, again, thank you to Levi. Thank you to all of our live viewers and their comments. Your comments make us better, kind of, sort of, maybe. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, there's some comments in there were cracking me up, man. It's good stuff.
So, again, thank you for that. As a reminder, none of us are medical professionals. We're still in the world of the pandemic. You wouldn't throw a fireball into a 10x10 room, or so you say after you already did it, because your character's common sense. Use your common sense to keep yourself, your loved ones, your family, your community healthy and safe. All right? What does that mean? You tell me. All right? Common sense. Use it. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. Knock on wood. I'll be back again tomorrow. All right, folks. Laters.